As the town expanded over time, much of the ancient village was paved over and archaeological excavations were limited. In 1997, work began on Nazareth Village, a multi-million-dollar recreation of Jesus' hometown. As a prelude to construction, the developers commissioned a routine archaeological survey. But when archaeologist Ross Voss conducted a preliminary study of the site, his findings proved anything but routine.
We discovered that there were many, many terraces here, and we found the wine press still partly buried under the soils, and so we knew immediately that there were some antiquities here, and we decided this would also be a good place to excavate.
Despite the presence of this very old wine press, Voss never expected to find anything of the 1st century. Yet, with an exploratory probe, skepticism turned to astonishment.
This is part of a jar. Here's another little jug, which could have held water or wine. This is the handle of a cooking pot. But this is the crucial evidence that we have that enables us to date the deposition or the placement of these soils and the farming of these soils. We know from the exclusive material of the 1st century here that this was the primary period when the terraces were created and being used.
Voss had inadvertently stumbled upon the fields farmed during Jesus' lifetime. A full-scale excavation began revealing much about daily life in 1st century Nazareth.
All right, here we have on my right a basin where the grapes would have been kept waiting to be pressed here in the middle of this pressing floor, which is a square area carved or hewn out of the bedrock itself. And as the grapes would be trod by maybe 2 or 3 people, the juice then would start running down and feed into this vat. And for the first 2 or 3 days, the grape juice would be allowed to ferment, and this would begin the process of changing the grapes into wine.
Even a casual glance at the Gospels reveals a Jesus deeply familiar with this agricultural life.
I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He prunes away every barren branch, but the fruitful ones he trims clean to increase their yield.
So all of this imagery then has to come, imagine, from personal experience. And all of that experience would come right here on the hillside itself, outside the village of Nazareth.
Yet scholars had long struggled to make sense of one agricultural reference in particular.
A man planted a vineyard, put a hedge around it, dug out a vat, and erected a tower. Then he leased it to tenant farmers and went on a journey.
Assuming watchtowers had no place in an agricultural field, many scholars believe the tower of this parable to be a later injection into the gospel story. Until Ross Voss made an amazing discovery.
Well, as I head up this hill, which is heavily eroded, and we have a lot of exposed bedrock where the terraces had collapsed and the farm soils had washed away, we do have at this step here one of the preserved terraces coming over to meet a large watchtower. And this particular tower is just about 6 meters away from another watchtower lower down on another terrace step. And behind us then, the largest tower.
Voss had discovered not one, but 3 1st-century watchtowers in the fields of Nazareth. Why were they here? What were they guarding?
The purpose of the towers was to protect the crops in the harvest season. Usually in August, when the grapes were ripe and ready to be picked for pressing and turned into wine, it was often a temptation for neighboring farmers on their different plots to steal from their neighbors so that they could get an extra amount of produce that they might be able to pay their taxes with. So in these months, or September and October, then when the olives would be ripe and they would be harvested, people would actually live in the towers throughout the day and the night and over these months to make sure that no one was going to steal from them.
These ruins are an echo of the past, of the all-consuming struggle for existence that defined the lives of 1st-century peasants. Peasants like Jesus of Nazareth.
Someone like Jesus would have been coming here on a regular basis to help with the harvest, to help with the maintenance of the terraces, to tread the wine press, to get the olives and crush the olives for pressing the oil. Anyone from the village who spent most of their time outside the village and into the fields, undoubtedly Jesus was here.